Professor Schippers, may I ask you some questions?
Yes, of course. What do you want to know, Rico?
It's been a while since we last recorded a video like this. We have been in this setting near a lake where you live, in your house. Now you're in my house or in my garden. To reflect on what's happened over the last couple of years, what you see happening and also see happening now. We're coming out of a unprecedented time, and that's why I like talking to you and you explaining from psychological phenomena why people behave the way they do. What I see now is that people try to go back into their old habits, into their old life after everything that's happened, and blame the other guy for, I don't know, losing his business, or blame the other guy for his health problems, or rather than taking a holistic approach to the circumstances. What's going on there, psychologically?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one theory that can explain this is the just world hypothesis. Because people like to have this positive illusion that what happens in the world is right and okay, and in the end it will be right or just. So justice is served, which is not always the case, and then people get kind of cognitive dissonance. Okay, when it's not served, then we can do two things. We can blame the person or the circumstances. And usually when it's somebody else, you blame the circumstances. So if you come to work late, or something happens to you, then
I come to work late.
Yes.
It's because of the bridge was open, or the bus was late.
Exactly. But
my kids, my wife.
I think he came late the other day as well, so he's a person who comes late. So I blame you personally, and you blame the circumstances. Okay. So if you get an accident, I say, yeah, he's not so careful, and so. So there's different things. And after World War II, there were a lot of research was done. How could this have happened? We really want to know as psychologists. So there was a boom of research, and we also, a lot of people know, for instance, the Milgram experiment. Where
how could World War II have happened?
Yes.
How could people have
gone so far?
Gone along so far?
With all the cruelty that has been going on. So Lerner was a psychologist who wanted to look for answers to two questions. How can regimes that cause cruelty and suffering maintain popular support and become even more popular sometimes? And how is it possible that people come to accept norms and laws, social norms and laws that produce misery and suffering, which they would never accept in, let's say, from one day to the other in a normal situation, you would say. And so Lerner thought, okay, there's this experiment with Milgram, there's the obedience explanation. So if you have to give a shock to a person who has to learn something, and then this increases by time because the person keeps on making mistakes, then 70 or 75% of people will go all the way until this is a deadly shock.
Most people who have studied psychology at some point in their life will have gotten that example. I would be drafted as someone taking tests, testing other people, and the other people would be actors, and I would increase
the shocks. And you don't know that it's an actor.
I don't know it's an actor. I think it's real, and I increase giving the shock because I'm told to do that.
Yes.
And I would go way further than I would ever
imagine.
Have imagined or acknowledged that I would do that.
Yes.
So that's the research that you are referring to.
That's the research, and Lerner thought, okay, but how do people justify this for themselves, that they did this? So how do they see the victim? So he kind of had the victim in mind and the whole circumstances. And so he thought, okay, then they blame the victim. Blaming the victim is, okay, this person was so stupid and made so stupid mistakes that,
he had it coming.
He had it coming, more or less. And that is more strongly, that's this conviction that, for instance, when a woman is raped, well, she shouldn't have had this short, these clothes. That's kind of, yeah. She had
blaming the victim.
That's blaming the victim.
We're doing that. Are we doing that now also in the last couple of years? I mean, when the corona measures started, you were one of the first to be outspoken and say this is going to hurt society. This is going to hurt society maybe even more than the good it might potentially do. And you were proven right. But we're now in front of new elections in the Netherlands. The people doing all those measures, they'll likely get votes again. So why aren't we learning? Why aren't we...
And people have been asking me, will people go along with all the measures again? And I said, probably yes. Unfortunately, how much I want to see it differently, many people will go along, always. And so that is basically because they have this positive illusion that the world is just. And then you can do two things when the world is not just. You can conclude, okay, I was wrong. My hypothesis of a just world hypothesis is wrong. The world's not just, there is suffering, there is an injustice. But also you can derogate the victim. So you can see, okay, he lost his job, that is because of he didn't do enough to find a new job. And they were musicians before, and then everything was closed. Well, they could have gone for another job and get a cleaning job or something.
So what does it take for people to reflect on things and accept that they were wrong, that I were wrong maybe with my premise? So how do we get people to do introspection that way, to reflect on themselves? Well,
I was hoping, but I haven't been able to prove it yet, that a letter to the future and seeing the broader picture, because people fail to see the broader picture, that there is these social circumstances, that the government has made all these decisions making people suffer. And then if you don't blame the sufferers, but see the bigger picture. So I was hoping that letters to the future, where people write about their ideal world if there were no constraints, versus the world that will come to pass if we go on like this, and see what they can do themselves to change the situation, actually. Because we know that this effect is stronger when people cannot change anything. So, for instance, where this lady is being raped, if she gets justice, then people will restore the sense of justice. And then people will say, okay, it wasn't her fault, it was the perpetrator who did this.
Yeah, so it's a chicken and the egg situation. If we don't get an external factor in, like a legal system prosecuting a perpetrator, if that doesn't happen, we blame the girl with her short skirt. However, if
not everyone does that, so that's a good thing. But it's a tendency to do it. Yeah. And I think one of the most important things is to know about this tendency. So if you know this is happening, then you encounter a similar situation, and then you think, oh, this just world hypothesis, maybe I'm doing this. And you can step out of the situation and say, I'm changing my view on this situation. So the first step is to know about it. So that's why I'm making these educational videos.
There you go. Okay. You spoke in the past tense about lessons to the future. I was hoping. I would think, and I think I know you pretty well, you're still hoping. Yeah. However, maybe it's the tempo or the approach also on how to get it across.
Well, one thing is we need to do research on it, or if it indeed does this. And the second is we know it works for people when they write about their ideal life themselves, life crafting. It works in the sense that people get more motivated, get more energy, and get their goals. And the second is I haven't been able to make this really a big thing. So not many people do it because they think they want to do more concrete actions. But first, before you make it concrete, why not reflect on what exactly you want to do instead of trying out 10 different things, following false prophets, and then finding out that all your energy has been wasted on the wrong projects.
Well, that's me also. I mean, you're describing me.
Oh, sorry.
No, but that's,
didn't know that.
Make an example of myself. I don't feel I would follow false prophets, so that's not something I would easily. I was not referring to you in that sense, but I also have not done the Letters to the Future project myself just yet, because I fear it's also it's intimate. It's a reflection. You have to show your own doubts or your own uncertainties in that mechanism. So it feels unsafe. So that's my association with that thing.
Okay.
Everybody would have their own things
to postpone it.
Yeah, to procrastinate.
Yeah. But even confessing it to yourself would be.
That would be the same thing for me as doing it to other people. However, I have told you off camera that I made a decision and I would start to do that project. And yes, I have so far been procrastinating, but now it's on camera. So.
So now you have made a public pledge.
I've made a public pledge, and I will publish it also. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Also, for lack of other initiatives. So if I feel this is going to work, and I feel this is going to work, why aren't I doing it then?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think maybe if there's a deadline or so I wanted to make like how do you say, competition out of it, or a kind of a competition in the sense that many people do it. We publish it in a book, and there is some kind of prize to be gotten. But not that I will judge it. I think it's very personal, all of it. But just, that we make some kind of competition together. Okay. I don't know yet how, because it's a lot of work. But
well, that's my standard answer to a lot of work is, and that's Dutch. So maybe you can help me translate it. We have a saying: it's onbegonnen werk.
Yeah.
Onbegonnen.
Mission impossible.
Mission impossible. Work that you can't even begin to start it because it's so much.
Yeah.
Well, somebody started already, so it's only a lot of work now.
Right. So we need to find some volunteers helping us, I think.
People doing it. So I'm gonna show my experiment doing that. So we're talking about the just world hypothesis, which includes blaming the victim. I mean, it's your own fault. And I'd rather blame the victim than blame society or blame myself for not intervening. On Wikipedia it says the just world hypothesis or just world fallacy is the cognitive bias that assumes that people get what they deserve, that actions will necessarily have morally fair and fitting consequences for the actor. We are still in there as society. I mean, we've done the most unimaginable measures, like a curfew against the virus, and it's still not being researched in the Netherlands or critically observed in Parliament. Yeah,
and we've been blaming the wrong people, like the victims. Like there was, I think in the beginning, in one of my first films that I did, I told about a lady in the train who wasn't wearing her mouth mask. She was just drinking, and then the conductor came and wanted to push her out of the train. And then people started shouting at her that she had to leave the train because they wanted to be at work in time. And I'm like, who is the wrong person? You know, who's to blame here? Is that?
Do you feel we've learned? So when next time comes around?
Oh, we haven't learned anything. No. Yeah, some people have. Many people have learned individually. But they have to find each other and form networks. And because what I've seen is that many people know that this is going on and that a lot of injustice is going on. But they don't really connect well to each other, and they have their own agenda, or they have narcissism, or so they have to deal with all those things first before being able to connect and to really make a change.
One of the things that we recorded was an interview with Matthias Desmet, which is also your profession, about mass formation, and what was explained back then was if the mass is big enough, then the critical mass of people, then that's what you get.
Yes.
Have we broken the mass already?
I'm afraid not, but it's hard to measure.
The starting point is better than it was a couple of years ago.
That's true. That's true. Because people were taken by surprise, and many people are not taken by surprise this time. So that might make a difference. So I'm always a hopeful person, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. That is my feeling, but not something I would really like not to happen.
So you mentioned the research that was done, where a test subject would inflict pain on the subject. And then you said, what's going to happen afterwards? Who gets the blame? And how do we resolve that psychologically? Have you said everything about that, what you wanted to say?
Yeah, so there's different explanations. So it might be a way to reduce guilt, so that you feel guilty. Because I know people, you can see in the films that people feel uneasy doing it. It's not that they like. It's not that they're psychopaths that they really like to inflict pain on others. At least the ones that I saw, they were really looking. Do I really have to do this? Or they are sweating and they're asking the experimenter who is with the with the white goat, and then say, "Go on, teacher." And even this very simple thing, "Go on, teacher," makes people go on. But they do feel guilty. So they may derogate the victim for guilt reduction.
Now, this is only an issue if we're going to rinse and repeat in the coming years. You think we're going to go through?
Yeah, well, in the beginning I said, this is causing a lot of moral injury on people, and they also might want to do discomfort reduction. And I said, I am experiencing preemptive moral injury because I see all of this coming. I see I wouldn't say I see the big picture, and my view is the view, but I see so many things connected, and I have the tendency to look on a bigger scale and to see the systems and how they work. It's my profession, but it's also, as a psychologist, it's usually from you reason from the individual and a little bit of the social system, but I've progressed to, let's say, world scale, and I've just written a paper about this death spiral effect, where we also said, okay, this decision making is perpetuating. So we make a wrong decision and we keep on doing that and going around in circles.
Okay, have you said everything you wanted to say about the just world hypothesis?
Yeah, I think so, yes. Thank you.